Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Shane. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. Most excellent. I'm doing phenomenal, bro. Yeah,
Good.
it's great to have you on, man. Yeah,
Thanks.
I
Yeah, I
guess
feel like
I'll
I met you like 2 years ago, right when I started at Fleet Feet. Yeah, you've been an inspiration the whole time. It's my pleasure, Shane.
right on, right on. You're an inspiration to me. All right, let's get this started. Good morning and welcome to Positive Vibes, making positivity and gratitude louder in a podcast world. And my name is Shane Nikolic, of course, and my guest today is my good friend Sam Bosworth. He's an ultra marathon runner, and he also works at Fleet Feet Sports or whatever there in Bonnie Lake, Washington. And so I go in there and see him every now and again. Or like the other day, I was running around the store getting mileage in, and he happened to be taking out,
I was
taking
taking out the trash.
yeah, taking out the trash, and so I'm out there. So we connected, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'd love to have you on my podcast." And so here we are. And uh, yeah, first off, good morning, Sam, and it's a pleasure to have you on my show today.
Pleasure to be here, Shane. Thank you so much. I wanted to be down there today, but we have a little potential COVID scare in the house. I live in a house, kind of a full house situation with my sister's family and our divorced parents. And
Yeah,
while I was at work yesterday, mom and sister came down with some symptoms. So just kind of doing the interview over the phone today, like a lot of things are happening these days. Better safe than
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, definitely better safe than sorry. Especially some of the things stuff I've heard about the virus and everything. It's better to be cautious than you know
You
not.
know, I feel like I'll be fine if I get it, but that being said, I don't want to get it. And my dad has some health problems. My dad has an adult onset muscular dystrophy, which really attacks it hit around age 50 for him. And then it attacks his lungs and his swallowing muscles and any type of lung infection, pneumonia. It could be fatal, but 2 or 3 times the risk of that being fatal. He'll be 69 on the first of the year. So
Mm.
we're all trying to be really careful and cognizant of that.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I definitely, got to watch out for people that are aging, and yeah, especially having muscular dystrophy. You never know, but it's
Mhm.
also I've been told the same thing. I've been told that I better watch out with my multiple sclerosis, being as it's an autoimmune disease. Potential that my immune
That's why I
system
was
is
so
flaring up.
concerned about getting you the information last night. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. It's and like I was saying last night, better safe than sorry. Better, you know, just in case not to pass it on, and potentially, pass it on even further to more people. Um,
And I feel like we've all kind of learned this new Zoom skill. I'd never done a Zoom meet in my life until last March. And I feel like we're all kind of old pros now,
yeah,
like
yeah,
lemons and
definitely,
lemonade. Yeah.
definitely. Fortunately, was in a mastermind last year and into this year a bit, and we did weekly Zoom calls on there, so I got real used to it there. And then
Okay.
being here at the radio station, it's like I've gotten used to them uh, even more because I've had to get my own account and get logged in and all that, and it's
Okay.
like line up my own Zoom calls. So it's like, yeah, it takes a while to get everything down, but which I'm still which I'm still doing, but because there's a lot of ins and outs. But yeah, it's
Sure, sure.
just it's a wonderful tool, definitely. uh, Connecting us just, a couple towns over, and,
Yeah.
like on the mastermind I was in, connecting people worldwide.
Yeah, you
And,
have a great voice. You're doing a great job, man. Keep
oh,
it up.
right on. Thank you. Um, but yeah, the reason I brought you on the show today was just, you know, I, I think it's just amazing some of the mileages you run. I mean, you and our friend Jess just ran, what was that, 240.3 miles?
Yeah, so it was a race. It was called the Moab 240. And we call it a foot race because certainly none of the competitors are running the whole 240 miles. That's what I like about ultra running and trail running. You really get to blur that line between running, walking, and moving across the earth on your feet. So we moved across the earth 240 miles on our feet in about, I think it was about 105 hours through the desert and some of the mountains of Moab. And yeah, it was really cool, exciting to be able to do a race this year. Our friend Jess, who you mentioned, she signed up for Fleet Feet Run Club about a year and a half ago, having very little running experience. She lost a lot of weight, but she brought a real positive mental mindset to it, really wanted to do some ultra marathons. And she's brilliant. She went to Caltech. She's got a great mind. And she kind of refocused her mind from parenting and her scientific background into fitness and ultra running. And I was able to teach her some things about running, and she's probably able to teach me some things about endurance. And it was a perfect team.
Right on, right on. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was just she just we were just chatting on uh, yeah, Instagram or whatever. We were chatting, and she was saying she was really looking forward to this podcast, and she said two of my
Yeah.
favorite runners, sweet. But
It's like she's so remarkable. She's a good runner, but when she started ultra running, her mind already had ultra running ability. She just had to like teach her arms and legs how to do it a little bit, which didn't even take very long. Yeah, she's a badass.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think you both are. I mean, it's like
Well,
what
it took
was
me 15 years to get to this point. I'm like
yeah.
normal. It took me 15 years to learn how to run 240 miles. It took her like a year and a half or so.
Oh, geez. Yeah,
Uh,
true. Uh, but yeah, and I remember I was thinking back, and I remember meeting Jess at the start line for uh, the Run Super 50 miler.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
up there in South Cleellum.
Freezing our butts off at like 4 in the morning. Get
Yeah,
us
yeah,
some rain, about
yeah, waiting for
28
the
degrees.
waiting for the bus. Or actually, we met in North Bend, or there at that where the bus picked us up to go up to South Cleellum. But yeah, um, yeah, that was an amazing run. I didn't finish the run, but yeah, that was awesome. And I hope to get up there and finish it one of these times. If and when we do it.
I say don't never feel bad about DNS. Sometimes we look back and we realize that we could have maybe finished something, but I have at least 20 DNFs in my ultra running career. When I look at all, I've DNF'd a lot of races over the years, and those are probably the ones I learned the most at. The ones where you get a good result, it's like you go do it and the day goes by real fast. You have a hamburger and you go home and that's it. But the ones where you
True.
don't finish are the ones that carve out a spot in the back of your brain and get you to go back to the drawing board a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's like, I'm grateful that I had that experience running, the first half or whatever, because, I, even though I didn't finish the run, I still have the experience of what I did do there and tips and tools, suggestions from myself to myself on how I can finish next time. Like
Absolutely.
holding my pace back a little bit so I'm not wearing myself out so much.
That's what I like about ultra running. It's like if you look at even marathoning down to like a 5K, you practice doing your distance and you more or less know what you're going to do and you don't have to eat or drink that much. You go out there. Ultra running, there's just so many different things. You have your pace, your drinking, your eating, your
Yeah.
salt, your coming out of a bad spot, because you can go to a really bad spot halfway through and an hour later you can feel great. Is a remarkable thing about those. So you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you about was, okay, is there any, I don't know if there's any big difference or not. I'm sure you have to train differently, maybe a little bit, but how, like, I know I've trained for up to a marathon technically, and then I've run further than that, but how do you train? Is there any difference in training for 240.3 miles as in training for 26.2 miles?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. The main difference is getting used to time on feet. So is what we did to train for this 240. It kind of goes back to a little over a year ago, last November, Jess wanted to run 100 miles. So we did that 100 miles into Halle last November. And we didn't really stop training after that. You're supposed to take a break and all that. We kind of kept training into the new year, and Jess got this idea. There was an inaugural 200 miler on Orcas Island in May that was supposed to happen. We love Orcas Island. It's a great place to go train in the winter. So we took a couple of trips up there in the winter and did a couple of hiking, running weekends where, we covered 50 miles or so over 2 days. And so the Orcas 200 was canceled in May. That being said, Jess, her mindset, that was not acceptable. So we went over to Orcas Island in May, and over about 51 hours, I think we did about 110 miles with 2 90-minute naps in there to kind of, get an event in, feel like we put some of our training to use. And I'm like, cool, that's it for the summer. And I go back to work at Fleet Feet. A couple of weeks after that, I start getting these texts from Jess about wanting to do the Wonderland Trail in 3 days. So without any really of my own planning, the last 3 days in July, I found myself at the start of the Wonderland Trail with Jess, and the plan was to do that in 3 days. And that was a lot harder than I thought it would be. And after that, she suggested we got on the Moab 240 wait list. And so we had done those 200 plus mile events over a couple of days, and we both had a couple of injuries. I've been dealing with a hernia all summer, which I have surgery scheduled December 11th, which I'm kind of excited about. Yeah. So really after the Wonderland Trail, we didn't train all that hard. We got out for our daily runs. We went for some hikes. Sometimes when you're just fit, and you have some little injuries, you just got to let it be and do what you can. So prior to Moab, after doing the Wonderland Trail the last 3 days of July, we did our little 5-mile runs in the neighborhood. We did a couple of 8-hour hikes. We hiked up to Mirror Camp, 10,000 feet on Rainier. We did the enchantments. But it was mainly planning logistics after that and visualizing. I really believe the longer the race is, the more important visualizing the different points at it are going to be. Yeah. Because going into this one, I DNF 400s in a row. The last 4 official 100 milers I signed up for, I DNF, which doesn't really bode well going into a 240 miler. So I spent a lot of time in my brain picturing how I was going to feel, picturing the voice in my head telling me to quit, which it did. And all the answers I was going to give that when it came up with reasons I should stop it. The biggest one was halfway through the race, it took us 54 hours and it was a 112-hour time limit. I didn't think we were going to have enough time to finish the race. But yeah, Jess really she helped screw our heads on, and we had some runnable terrain after that, and the second half went better than the first half, which is sometimes a common theme in ultra, where you can be dead, down and out, and an hour later you feel great and you're on top of the world.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. When I was, well, not that I've done even 100 miles, but when I did the Pack Rim 24-hour run down in Longview, there was a couple times during the middle of the night where it's like I was just so worn out and my legs were hurting, my left knee was beat up. So I sat in my car for an hour, turned on the heater, plugged my phone in, charged it back up, and just tried going to sleep, but never could. So I just ended up relaxing for, half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And just like, well, better get moving. So I got out of my car, got back on the loop, the trail around Lake Sacagawea down there. And as soon as I got moving, it's like, okay, we're moving now.
When you make a decision that you're not going to quit, the mind pieces together what it has in the body, and it'll start to make something that'll resemble a run. It might not be very pretty, but unless you break your legs, the body can usually find a way to shuffle, stumble, run. And if you can't do that, you can always crawl like a baby.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually had a couple times where I'm on a run, and it's like, no matter how far into it, I'll be like, I'll just get this spurt of energy, and so I'll sprint for a little ways, and then I'll be like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Now I'm just like, hurting is killing me. I'll slow down to a walk for a little ways, and then I'll be like, well, dude, you don't need to sprint it, you know, and I'll think of Super Sabrina and I'll be like, just do the Super Sabrina shuffle, you know, and you get your way there.
Yeah, it's funny. You can draw upon the universe. There's so many
Yeah.
areas of inspiration. David Goggins, he's a kind of a big personality. He has this concept of the cookie jar, where when people get in a bad situation, you forget how badass you are, and you forget all these things you've done in your life. And it gets to be rough like that, you can draw back to, oh, I did this, and I felt even worse than this, and I got through that. There was that time, and I felt even, and you start eating those cookies, and that sometimes buys you 5 minutes. That's sometimes all it takes. After you can
Yeah.
get yourself going for 5 minutes, that voice in your head takes on a new tone, and you're cruising.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like with that visualization, that helps immensely. It's like, you know, from the beginning, I just envision myself, I see myself crossing that finish line, and you know, from then on, it's like, okay, what do I have to do to get there?
Yeah. Hmm.
And most of the time, it's just keep stepping,
That's
keep
usually what
moving.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I have like a separate ultra running. I stopped drinking about 8 years ago, and a lot of my DNS were before that, and they were from like stomach related issues. I would sign up for these events, and I still partied a lot, and I would start throwing up in the middle of them a good portion of the time. And sometimes I'd finish, sometimes I wouldn't. It's kind of I fit the ultra running into that lifestyle, and when I stopped the partying lifestyle, it definitely took on a whole new meaning, where I started to like see it as a journey that had to be completed. Where prior to that, it was just kind of another good time. That did kind of take on that spiritual side after that. Where running kind of is the ultimate allegory for life. I mean, it's hard. You're going to want to quit, but if you keep going, you'll be rewarded.
Definitely, definitely. Um, like, do you what do you have any? Is there any? Do you adhere to any set routine for your like pre-race hydration nutrition, during the race hydration nutrition?
Yeah. So, in terms of hydration, nutrition beforehand, I don't really alter what I eat to get ready for racing. I just try to eat really well. Like you, I try to eat a lot of mainly plant based. I'd say I'm about 90% plant based. I'm like a vegan that likes to have a steak about 3 times a year.
Yeah.
I try to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, minimal amount of grain. I eat oatmeal and rice, and a lot of fats, a lot of nuts. Um, in terms of like special runner health food, the only things I really take are, I take salmon oil capsules and I take turmeric. I've done that for years. I think the omega 3s, we all have a ratio of omega 3 to omega 6 fatty acids in our bodies. The processed food that we eat drives the omega 6 up. Taking the salmon oil is just a good way to even out that ratio of inflammation to anti inflammation. Turmeric, there are instances of arthritis, that type of thing, are way lower in India, and that's in all their food. That seems to help. So yeah, I just try to eat really healthy. As far as racing goes for ultra marathoning, I have really gotten away from running food, and I eat real food now. And it's funny, I tend to eat more meat when I'm running than when I'm not running. That during Moab, I think I counted, I had about 8 hot dogs, 6 hamburgers, and probably about 3 pounds of bacon. The more I get into this, when I look at a piece of bread when I'm out there all day, I see 100 calories that might make me have to go to the bathroom, and 100 calories is nothing. It's quickly processed high glycogen. So I'm finding myself going to the fat, the burgers, the nuts, and things like that during the race. I haven't for a long time drinking anything other than water when I run. If it's extremely hot out, like it was in parts of Moab, I'll take some type of salt capsule, thermolytes or salt stick. They all seem to be more or less the same for me. I don't have any brand loyalty with regards to one new product I've seen on the shelf at Fleet Feet, which I'm a big fan of, is the trail butter. That's kind of, I think people are more and more going away from those goos, those 100 calorie simple carbohydrate packets that are It's straight up sugar. It's not good for you. And the last official 100 miler I finished in 2014, I ate 60 of them. That was like $250 worth of sugar I ate to get through this race and had a stomach ache for 2 days after. And so, yeah, more and more, I think a lot of athletes, unless the people trying to win the race running extremely fast, a lot of those guys are still pumped on straight sugar. But more and more people just trying to finish the race are just eating real food out there. So less and less, yeah, just kind of natural foods for the most part.
Right on.
And I guess the tweak I would make, like I wasn't eating the oatmeal and the rice and beans too much out there. That stuff's fiber. It's gonna make you have to go to the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an ongoing experiment too. It's a total ongoing experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like sort of tweak it, find out what works well and what doesn't. And, yeah.
And wait till it doesn't work sometime and then tweak it again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sometimes stuff quits working well for you and you gotta change it. Um, but yeah, it's like that's one thing I've noticed with especially distance running is that got to watch how much I eat and what I'm eating, or what I'm drinking, how much I'm drinking, more like it, so that I don't
Yes,
spend the
yes.
majority, so that I don't spend so much time on that race looking for an outhouse or a tree.
Absolutely. And a lot of that's from the experience and the repetitions. I try to stay in a semi-meditative state now, and my body really tells me what it wants. We had this thing, and I think it was a lot of had to do with the marketing done by these companies. There's a book called Waterlog, talked about how Gatorade brainwashed this generation of scientists, and they got us with this attitude that we have to drink before we're thirsty. I don't believe in that at all. Nobody has ever died during any kind of running race in America from dehydration. Never. Hundreds of people have died from water intoxication since this whole Gatorade drink before you're thirsty. So I really try to, and the more in tune with your body you get, the less sugar you consume on a daily basis, the better your sleep is. Your body's not going to lie to you. I don't need to like drink a bunch of water because I might get dehydrated in the future. I kind of get there, do my thing. Oh, I'm thirsty. Okay, drink a little water. Oh, I seem to be getting a little hungry. Nibble a little food. People have run forever. That this industry created to sell us stuff. I think it's probably done more harm than good in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few different people tell me that in the middle of races and at the end of races, like you you know you Shane, you ought to be drinking a lot more water, and you've only show me your water bottle. I pull it out, and I'm only down like that much, and the water bottle's like this, and they're like, you should be drinking a lot more water than that. And it's like, I don't know.
Although there's indicators like if you're peeing, and if you should pee every 2 hours, that's a
Yeah,
good indicator you're drinking enough. If
yeah,
you're cramping, you might want to drink. These are all clues you kind of assimilate over the years where you don't drink just because some aid station volunteer is telling you to drink that's maybe never even run in their life.
yeah. No, no. There was one time at the Pack Rim 24-hour run where I actually two times there where I did have physical signs that I was actually totally dehydrated and about to die. But so if I went any longer, I may have. So I made sure to stop running and take a little break and get some hydration. But other than that, it's like,
The only time I've ever been dehydrated really seriously was when I was like puking all day, which was
yeah,
usually related to my lifestyle at the time.
yeah,
Since I stopped drinking, if I go run a hard road, if I go do a 3:15 road marathon and work really hard, I'll be dehydrated at the end, but that's as you should be. The body is designed to get dehydrated in times of extreme effort. Eliud Kipchoge is finishing his marathon dehydrated. He most certainly is. If he didn't finish it dehydrated, he'd probably be running in like 250. He'd run it, and 45 minutes slower than he is if he was finishing it hydrated. So
yeah,
sometimes you put forth a good effort, you're going to dehydrate yourself, and then when you're done, go rehydrate. It's fun.
yeah, yeah. It's like you put forth more effort, put forth all that effort to get a 2-hour marathon, or just for us regular people, just say a faster time, you know,
Yeah.
you put forth that 150%, 200% effort as you're used to, then you're going to
You're
get
gonna wring the rag out a bit.
yeah, then you're going to burn up all that fuel, the hydration and nutrition you do have in your body, and you're going to need more. But yeah, it's like, you know, running races and drinking water and eating a bunch during the race at the aid stations. I've ended or been halfway done. I'm just, my gut's hurting and I'm, you
Yes.
know, ready to stop right there because I've been eating and drinking so much, as was suggested.
Yeah. I've always liked your style. You're pretty minimal. You get like a little tiny bar or something, you eat that and a coffee, and you're good to go for a while.
Yeah,
It's a good feeling too to feel what it's like to be hungry. I think so few people never feel what it's like to actually let themselves get hungry. The whole like 3 meal a day thing. It's like if you're an adult, unless you're like on an NFL team or playing, you know, for the Lakers, you don't need to eat 3 meals a day. It's like maybe one and a half is good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like anymore. I've got it to where I just eat like, you know, I sort of snack most of the time. I just eat like a banana, maybe two bananas, and you know, a cup or two of granola in the morning,
Yeah.
and you know, it's like that's my breakfast, and then, you know, for lunch, well, pretty much every day for lunch at work, I have, since I work at Trapper Sushi, I have grilled
Yeah.
salmon and grilled vegetables, but you know, it's like
Which
other
is
than
super
that,
low calorie. Yeah.
yeah. But
That's awesome.
I'm getting my omega threes there. You know, there's my salmon oil, 8 ounces of
Yep.
salmon.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I love salmon. When I moved to Washington from San Diego about 4 years ago, and I ate so much salmon the first year or so I moved here. I kind of got a little burned out on the taste, honestly. And then I started eating fully plant-based for a little while, but I wanted to keep up with the salmon oil because I do really believe that salmon is probably, if you look at all the things put on this earth from God, Buddha, whatever you want to call them, to me, it's like those salmon swimming up the river are gifts sent from God to eat. They're gonna die pretty soon. I see those things swimming up the river there. They're just like saying, "Eat me." And I'm not into factory farming. I feel bad when I eat a steak. I feel terrible seeing those little chickens in the coop and all that. But you know, a wild animal swimming up the river, they're gonna die one way or the other, be it disease or predation. If they can keep the human race going and still lay their eggs at the same time, that seems like the circle of life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, and just like another, yeah, one other thing I wanted to ask you about was just like, I was just wondering if you could like, if you could describe what goes through your head. I mean, you've already said a little bit, but like
Yeah.
what all goes through your head from the start to the finish of say 100 mile or 240 miles?
It's a good question too, because they're really different from one another. The only way I could get through this 240 milers by the end, it was almost like a series of like 10 marathons or 10, 20 milers. You know, the distance is close enough. So by the end of it, it's like we'd go out on like a 20 to 25-mile journey. And it would usually take like 6 to 12 hours, depending on whether we were in the mountains and it was a flat. But we'd finish that section and it's like I'd be done. I could not even think about the next section yet. I would have to roll into the aid station. Jess had some foot problems, so she'd usually go to the foot tent and get taped up. I'd usually just go like sit on the ground and put my head in between my knees and like shake my head for 5 minutes. I'd sometimes cry a little bit. Then I'd go like eat a hamburger. I'd go check on Jess. I'd sit down on the ground, maybe drink a cup of coffee. And then I'd like cry a little more and think, okay, I guess we gotta go. I'd get a burger for the road, load up. You spend a good 10 minutes loading up your vest because when you leave the aid station, Shane, 25 miles in the Utah, it's hot. You could sprain your ankle. You could be out there for a long time. So it became pretty clear early on that we had to take a lot of focus into making sure we had our packs loaded well.
Yeah.
So that's how I got through that. We probably took about 6-hour naps or something like that in there. But it was like a series of marathons is how it felt. Where a 100-miler, I've always kind of broken that down into like thirds. You know what a 50K feels like. Kind of start off the day and do like a really casual 50K. The idea being if you do it casually enough, you can get to the 50K and your legs are just starting to get sore. That's the hard part in 100 for me. It's like the 50K, the next 50K. It's kind of the middle part of the day because I'm tired then. It's usually warm. And I never really finished a 50-miler in my life and thought, gee, I really feel like doing that again now. And so you have this saying once you get to 50 miles, but once I get past 50 miles and get to 55, then it's like the 40s are a manageable enough number. And then you start playing for that last 50K is the game I play. And so that once you get up to mile, like 70, then you have one more 50K and you can kind of take all the suffering and all the planning and all the money you've spent to that point and you have it in a bag right here and be like, okay, I can stop at mile 70. I've already done like over 250Ks. Let's just do one more and finish this up. Just kind of. And the other thing I always tell myself for a 100-miler is most of them have a 30-hour time limit. Like you live all these hours in your life. This is 30 hours. Even if they're spanking you the whole time, hitting you with it's 30 hours. I go back to that a lot. And there's no set way. I mean, this 240 stuff is brand new. I think the first 200 was in 2014, 2013. And I, like everybody, I had done a few hundreds by that point. I had zero interest in doing this 200-mile stuff. I worked for the race director 2 years ago doing logistics at two of her events, the one on Tahoe and Mount St. Helens. That didn't make me want to do it either. It was meeting and running with Jess Greene, who thought it would be a good idea. And sometimes when you have a friend, I felt like I was just kind of following her coattails in that race. It's really cool to see somebody that talented and that motivated. She kind of reminds me of where I was at like 5 years ago. It's like I still like the sport, I'm into it, but nowhere near what my obsessive mind was a lot more in the mid to late 30s. Now I'm kind of at that phase where it's fun to get other people into it and see what they can do. And I'm really into running mechanics and going long term in the sport. I have some, sore knees and probably some other physical issues that I don't even really particularly want to know about. I'm a big chi running fan. I think a lot about running form. I think a lot of people take running as like finishing the run, doing your 6 miles or your 12, whatever it is, and looking at it like that. I really try to look at the physical experience, what's happening inside my brain, my spinal cord, it's really a physical act to me that I really enjoy, and I hope to be able to do it for a really long time. And if I can't run, I'm just going to keep walking.
Yeah, man, I was as to what you were just saying about running form and all that. I I went to a run clinic here a couple of years ago, and it was Super Sabrina's run clinic she had at her Super Studios here in Tacoma, and
Is
um,
she the race director of that race we did?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I met her briefly. Yeah. Okay.
the Run Super 50 miler,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and at any rate, I went to this run clinic, and one thing I remember hearing at that run clinic was about your form, and how your form is so very important, and so far as helping you not get injured, and staying able to keep on running these long distances, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So I
And
was I was running down the sidewalk here a while back, and I saw Super Sabrina down there running on the sidewalk coming the opposite direction. She was coming toward me. I was going toward her, and uh, she uh, she she says, "Oh, hey Shane, your running form is incredible." And I hadn't really paid attention to it in a while. It had been a few months or a couple months since I actually paid attention to it. Like, how is my running form doing? I want to remain injury free year, but just I had naturally gotten to that point where I was just carrying myself with my the correct form, and it's like, I had, once these things become ingrained in us, I find that that's it just becomes like second nature just
Yes.
to continue running that way. Is that, and so that's your case too?
So is what Chi Running does. The book Chi Running by Danny Dreyer had a big influence on me a few years back. The best way I can describe how he teaches running would be how a swim coach would teach running. Like nobody ever just gets in the pool and is a great swimmer. They're going to break down your breathing, your arm stroke, your kick, your turn at the back of it. So what Chi Running does, he takes a look at a human body and the earth and just some real basic things you can do to actually positively affect the outcome of your run. Posture being the biggest one, breathing technique. Most people don't know how to breathe. So you send most people out to go for a run and they don't even know how to breathe. So they're going to be struggling immediately. And back to this point one, too, most people have terrible posture. They don't know how to breathe. And so their run is going to be painful and uncomfortable and out of breath. You teach them how to hold their upper body. You teach them how to breathe. And then the last part, that cool part about Chi Running, which you do really well, is you teach them how to lean forward and how to pick up their feet rather than to push off. And once you really tap into it, yeah, you almost feel like somebody's running your body for you.
Yeah.
You almost feel like a puppet and you're just, oh, this is cool. I'm running. I'm not really doing anything. Because our body, it's ingrained in us from 3 million years of our ancestors running. We're pre-programmed knowing how to run. We just lose it by sitting on our butts through elementary, through high school. Then we all get jobs at computers. You take somebody that's doing what I'm doing right now and they do that for 15, 20, 30, however many years, and tell them to go running. Yeah, they're not going to know how to breathe. They're not going to know how to stand up straight, and they're not going to know how to pick their feet up right. And so Chi Running kind of takes and shows you how to lose a lot of those modern movement patterns that we've developed and redeveloped the old kind of caveman ones we've lost over the years.
Yeah, it's thinking back, I had sort of, I've always, well, you know my story. Since I was 11 and in physical therapy there after my brain injury and all that, had to learn to walk again and all that. But anyway, since that time, I've been active, not necessarily highly active the whole time, but active at any rate. And since I wish I had been highly active the entire time, because it's like, you know, after having jobs for a few years where I was driving all day,
Yeah,
doing deliveries. I mean, sure, I'd get out of my vehicle and go into the
yeah,
building,
yeah.
drop the delivery, but I'd spend most of the day sitting in the truck or sitting in my car. And it's like
What
I'm,
sitting does, it shortens the psoas major. It's the hip flexor, the muscle that runs up through there. You sit like this, that muscle shortens and it stays like that. And then when you get up, it pulls your pelvis forward.
yeah,
Yeah, more you can stand. I get to stand most of the time at Fleet Feet, thankfully, other than when I'm fitting people. And yeah, that's one of my running mentors. That was his best piece of advice. He's like, never sit.
yeah, it's like um, my job at the restaurant, I'm on my feet all day, and it's like, except for maybe
Yeah,
5 or 10 minutes when I'm sitting down eating my salmon, other than that, I'm on my
exactly.
feet all day, and it's great, it feels good.
I was in the restaurant industry in California before moving up here, and I really enjoyed the industry. Really enjoyed it for what you said. Made decent money being on your feet. I go for my run and I work there 32 hours a week. I was in the best shape of my life.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, I'm on my feet all day at work, and then I get off work and I'm already energized from being active all day. So it's like, I go for a run after work, and
It
you
was
know,
fun being in that industry too as a non-partier. I was a little older than everybody. So it was a lot of late 20s kids and they all drank and partied and all that. And I'd show up to work after a 12-mile run. I felt like I was on steroids compared to the rest of the wait staff.
nice, nice. But yeah, I actually, I can so relate to that perfectly, because being clean and sober, and myself, and then coming to work, and yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Um, but yeah, it's like uh, I don't know. I love hearing your stories about running these super long distances. It just makes me want to get out there and run these super long distances. But I know I'm still working on, technically still working on the 50 miler in one shot. My longest ever is 57, but that's over the 24-hour
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
period with a couple of 2-hour breaks in there. But um, yeah,
I
it's
like the
like,
24-hour event for you because I know that you struggle a little bit more with some of the obstacles on the trail and things like that. Where a 24-hour event, you can really chip away at the need for sleep. Like that's something you can actually train, and you're not going to have to as the legs get more tired, to having to deal with the obstacles and things. I think that's a great goal. Focus on that 24-hour event.
yeah, yeah, that would, I remember. I actually remember something. Well, something when I was the first time I ran the Rainier to Ruston. I did the ultra with a friend of mine
Yeah.
from there at Fleet Feet, and like I crapped out. I stopped, told myself to quit at 43 and a half miles, and there in Fife. Didn't finish, didn't actually finish the race or the run, but because I heard a friend of mine that worked at Fleet Feet in Bonnie Lake, Kendra, I heard her voice in my head. Shane, when you're out there on that ultra marathon, just remember, listen to your body. And
Yes.
so that's what made me stop, was I was listening to my body and knew if I kept on, I knew I was fried right there, and so I needed to stop. But yeah, it's like, and I did the same thing when I was attempted that 100 miler with you and Jess. You and Jess had
Yeah.
taken off already, and like I was on my own, but I took a break in the middle of the night and got to a point where I'm like, okay, dude, I know I'm at a point right now where if I kept on going, I might just injure myself further, so I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, is that possible? Have you experienced that on these DNFs possibly?
I absolutely have. And part of it is I look back and some of them I wonder whether or not I should have quit. And that's part of the beauty of the sport because, we're living people. And each one of these races, if you're going to be a lifelong runner and you're going to do multiple races, is just one experience. And so you quit. You get something happened in the past, you quit. You look back on that and you will forever wonder whether or not you should have quit. And that's kind of the beauty of it in a way. I have not a lot of them. I have like 4 races where I'm like, I really should have maybe stayed in there. I don't think I probably would have hurt but in the moment, you have all these things rushing at your head and everything. That's the beauty of ultra, is because sometimes you're just going to get smoked. I know some people have never DNF'd a race. I know some people are like, I don't think Jess will ever DNF a race. I don't think she will. I know a couple of people that have that steadfast mind where it's not me. I used ultra marathoning to learn about myself and to get tougher. I did not come into the sport tough. I think there's just some people that maybe their parents were hard on them. Maybe they're just naturally a runner and all that. Like my nickname on my high school I was a baseball player, was Square Wheels. I started running when my family moved to California. My mom started running it when she was about 48. And I studied art in college, did a ton of drugs, drank a bunch, got fat after college. And I was kind of almost shamed by my mother at 48. She's even smoking cigarettes. And she just started running marathons. And here I'm like 26, and I'm like, man, you're fat. Your mom is out there at 48 running marathons. And so one day I just did a 4 mile run where my mom was staying. I showed up at her house and, Mom, I went running. And she was so happy. She took me out and got me a pair of running shoes. And it was really hard at first because I had damaged my ankles playing basketball and they just kept swelling. I couldn't run more than like a day or so at first. I just felt so compelled to do it. It made me feel so good. I kept at it. And the body's remarkable. If you keep feeding the body something, whether it be running, whether it be whatever, it's going to have some type of reaction. And so over the years, so I learned how to run a little bit. I still didn't have any conception of the mental toughness associated with running 50 or 100 miles. First 50 miler, I finished it doing a run walk rate. I set my watch to 10 and 3 because I had never gone more than a marathon. Second 50 miler I signed up for, I DNF'd. It was in the mountains. I didn't know anything about mountain running. Got to be 80 some degrees. I had my first experience vomiting for 5 hours straight, getting driven off. And granted, I had 15 beers the night before because that's just what I did then. And so all these things I learned how to not drink. I learned how to usually not quit. I learned how to eat better. And I have running to thank for all that. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I can recall in my teens, somewhere in my teens, my mid-teens, I don't know, 13 to 15, somewhere in there. I remember, being in my there would be times where I'd be in my room just fixated on the video game I was playing,
Mm-hmm.
on the old original Nintendo system.
NES, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be playing Super Mario Brothers for like the 2500th time or whatever. And
Same here, brother. Yeah.
yeah, it's like play through and beat
Nephew
it.
just
Well,
got that. He just got the Nintendo where you can download that. He broke that out on Thanksgiving. I played
oh,
Super Mario Brothers 1 for the first time since like 1990. That was a trip.
oh, right on, right on. Um, but yeah, I'd be playing that or Duck Hunt or whatever. Or Metroid, I think, was one of the other games. Anyway, I'd be playing video games, just happy as could be in my bedroom, and my dad, he'd be like, "Man, get outside, go play, go do something, And so I'd go outside and, oh, okay, whatever, and I'd be moping around and end up getting in trouble, drinking or doing drugs or smoking cigarettes. But anyway,
Yeah.
my dad's always been, stay active, do something. And it's like, there was one time my dad um, took me up just on an overnight backpacking trip up on Mount Rainier. We hiked out of Bipsic Creek Campground, parked there, and
Sure.
hiked up to Cataract Creek Campground, way up there, go up all those switchbacks, and set up our tents, spent the night up there, had a campfire or whatever, I think, and then made dinner on Sterno stove, and then the next day hike back down, just to get out and be active, get out in the world, and move around a bit, and it just
Mount Rainier is the coolest place I've ever been. That trip I went around the Wonderland Trail, better than any race I've ever done. Couldn't
yeah
recommend that enough to anybody. If you live in Washington, you need to go hike the Wonderland Trail if you are an able-bodied individual. Do it over 10 days, do it over you owe it to yourself.
yeah. Actually, my brother said something a while back about, that he wants to do that. Him and I, well, we talked about it 2 or 3 years ago. Never did, but he's still wanting to do that. Hike the Wonderland Trail and camp and whatever. But still
Get some
trying to,
dates, do it. Don't wait. Yeah.
trying to figure out logistics is the key. But um, yeah, have someone meet us with our stuff or whatever. How we gonna do it? But
They have
um,
caches is what you do. So when you get your dates, you drive around the mountain and you can put, is what Jess and I did, a tent
okay.
and a bunch of food at points along the mountain. So the stuff's actually waiting there for you.
Oh, okay, cool. Right on. I
Or if you want to drop $2,000, they have a service that does it, and they make you like Thanksgiving dinner at the end of every. I didn't have $2,000 for that.
yeah, yeah. No, that's okay. Just give me a couple hot dogs and some granola. um, something to get me by. I don't need a feast or whatever. Um, but
Jet boil and dehydrated food, piece of cake. I could get you outfitted, ready to do that in a couple hours. We could have you loaded up.
right on, right on. Maybe I'll take you up on that. Uh,
Ah,
but yeah, uh, I just think it's amazing. Um, some of these well, yeah, some of these distances you've run, like these 100 milers. I mean, I've got a few friends that run these 100 milers, you included. Just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll decide one day, okay, let's go run 100 miles this weekend or in a couple of weeks. Okay, cool. Let's go do it. And, get to the end of the 100 miles. That was cool. Let's do it again. Let's wait a couple weeks and do it again. But, yeah, it's just amazing. And I'd love to be trained. I'd love to get to that point where I would be able to do that. I know I'm able to. I just need to train for it. But um,
I would encourage you to try to do some basic strength training. As we get older, we lose 10% of our muscle mass every decade after 30. Is what running becomes when you want to run those extreme distances. You don't lose your ability to run because you haven't run far enough. You lose your ability to run because your muscles break down. And at some point, most people need to do some like body weight stuff, your planks, your wall sits, just squats, push-ups, things like that to develop some of the musculature around the spine, the butt, the shoulders, so they don't start to break down. Because what causes the injuries and the dropping out of races is usually the inability of the core muscles to support good posture later on in the run. It's like people don't drop out of races because they run out of cardio because their breath is bad. That's why I realized a couple of years ago, I used to try really stack high mileage, and I was just getting tired. And I found when I reduced the mileage a bit, put in some strength training, I was able to feel fresher both in training and later on in the race.
yeah, right on. Actually, that's actually I've heard that from a couple people, a couple trainers and coaches is the actually a guy that I interviewed here on my show a couple weeks ago. That's what he was saying was uh, work on work on building up your strength and body strength, and just maybe do some body weight exercises,
Mm-hmm.
just to build up your strength to be able to keep going, those
Yeah.
longer distances.
Isolate the glutes a little bit. Your gluteus maximus and your hip flexors are your main running muscles. Just, yeah, sit in the wall with your knees on and try to work up to where you can sit on the wall for like 60, 90 seconds. Really good just to build some of those stabilizers, which will help keep you nice and straight when you're running.
Yeah. Huh. That sounds like an awesome exercise. Like it would do a lot of good. Sitting against the wall. Never thought about that one. But yeah, we're getting close to that time where it better be wrapping up. Do you have any final words of wisdom for runners?
Final words of wisdom for runners. Just try to be consistent, whether consistent for you is running every day or running twice a week or once a week. And just always remember, I can't think of any time in my life, other than maybe the one serious injury I had, I broke my pelvis a long time ago. Other than that run, I've never had a run where I finished feeling worse than I did when I started it. If you ever have trouble getting out the door, just remind yourself of that. You'll feel better when you finish. And yeah, just try to stay consistent, enjoy the ride, and know it's a natural human activity you're doing. It's not some specialized craft that only athletes do. You're pre-programmed.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, I've heard that before. It's that, you know, people were designed to run. And
That's how we used to hunt. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
if you haven't read Born to Run, it's a cool read. Humans used to trot after herd animals with our sweating mechanisms they did not have. Antelope can run real fast, but only for a couple of miles. If you trot after them for 3 hours on the savannah 3 million years ago, they start dropping dead, and our ancestors eat them.
yeah, right on. Um, okay. Well, it, all right. Well, I guess that's it. I better be wrapping this up so the next show can come get set up. But I just,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm just so grateful that we're able to connect, and I was able to have you on the Zoom call today, and I mean, it would
I would
be
love to come
awesome.
out to the studio sometime. We could go for a run and do it again. We can have the sequel, do it right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
anytime you want to stop by, I could help you out with the little strength plan too. Just something
Okay,
that would take you like 10 or 15 minutes a day.
cool.
Totally help out your running, long term and short term.
Yeah, that would definitely be awesome. Um,
I do have a personal trainer certificate buried somewhere in my list of credentials over the years. I didn't like it. It's not my thing.
huh. Maybe
But
maybe maybe I could hold up my phone and do a live, do Facebook Live while and hooked up here at the station while we're running or whatever.
it's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, possibility anyway. I just figured I'd throw that out there. But yeah, I want to thank you for coming on, and for all the any viewers and listeners, I want to thank you for uh, viewing and listening this morning. And I'll just leave you with just remember, stay kind, optimistic, and grateful, and have a phenomenal day and a phenomenal week. And I'll see you next Sunday morning. And thank you, and bye bye.
Bye, Shane.
All right. Take care, Sam. See you later.
See you later, man. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.